Beneath the August sky's fading light, the town gathered for a summer night, where baseball games brought cheers and pride, and every heart was open wide. Among the players, young and bold, a boy named Jack, just 16 years old, stood poised upon that dusty field, his bat in hand, his fate unsealed. Jack was known for his steady arm, a pitcher's grace, a boyish charm. But tonight he'd take a different place, as the game wore on, an intense race. The scoreboard glowed, the numbers tight, the final inning in the fight. His team behind by just one run, 2 outs, 2 strikes, the game was spun. Jack approached the plate with care, his heart a drum, the crowd's loud blare. He felt the weight of all their eyes, their hopes, their fears, their silent cries. But as he stood within the box, his mind was plagued by doubtful talks. He'd never been a hero's choice, but now he had to find his voice. In the stands, the fans did roar, but one stood still amidst the score. A man, his face obscured by shade, watched Jack with eyes that didn't fade. Jack sensed a chill, a sudden shift, as though the air began to drift. The man moved closer, soft and slow, his presence cold, his voice loud but low. Don't fear the swing, don't doubt your hand, for destiny is close at hand. Swing hard and true, swing low and fast, and know that victory will come at last. Jack turned to see the source of sound, but found no face, no man around. Yet in his ear the words still rang, a ghostly touch, a haunted clang. He gripped the bat with knuckles white, his heart now set on winning the night. The pitcher stared with piercing eyes. The ball released, a quick surprise. Jack swung his bat with all his might and felt the ball take perfect flight. It soared above the outfield's reach, a home run ball, a lasting speech. The crowd erupted, joy unbound, as Jack's feet touched upon the ground. His teammates lifted him up high. The town's new hero touched the sky. But as they cheered and sang his name, Jack's mind returned to that strange game. He scanned the crowd, but none could see the man who'd whispered victory. They asked around, but no one knew. No man in shadows, no one knew. And as the night gave way to dawn, the mystery of the man was gone. A week passed by, the town still buzzed. The boy who won, the story fuzzed. Jack's fame grew fast, his life seemed bright, but strangeness would start to linger into the night. He'd lie in bed, eyes wide with dread, recalling every word that's said. The man's voice echoed in his brain, a chilling thought he couldn't feign. The night of the fire was dark and cold, the wind howled loud, the storm uncontrolled. Jack lay awake, his thoughts a mess, his dreams consumed by growing stress. The storm rolled in with fury's might, the rain like nails, the sky alight. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, as Jack's heart raced, his spirit soared. But then it came, a crackling sound, the smell of smoke, the fire unbound. The flames burst forth, a wild beast consuming all, a deadly feast. Jack leapt from bed, his fear a surge. The flames grew fast, began to urge. He tried to flee, but found the path was blocked by the fire's burning wrath. The heat was fierce, the smoke so thick, he gasped for air, his legs felt sick. He stumbled, fell, his body weak. The fire's grip began to seek. In desperation, Jack did kick, his leg through wood, doing all that he could. But as he tried to make his way, the fire claimed him, unfortunate to say. By morning's light, the house was ash, a blackened ruin, the final crash. They searched for him, the first responders, his family in shock. But all they found was just a smoldering block. Amidst the ruins, something stark, a single leg kicked through the dark. The rest was gone, no trace, no clue of Jack, the boy they all once knew. His parents sought some comfort, some final trace of Jack's last days, his youthful grace. They found a roll of film, unseen, hoping to capture where he had been. It was the camera they had brought to the game that night when fate was wrought. They'd taken pictures with joy and pride, unaware of the darkness that did bide. They took the film to be developed, hoping memories could be held and reveled. But what they saw in those glossy frames left them cold, filled with flames. Each photograph showed Jack aglow, a radiant outline, a spectral show. His body shone with an eerie light except for his leg, black as night. In team photos, the same light stayed, a ghostly aura that didn't fade. And there, in the shadows, lurking deep, a figure stood, its presence seeped. The man with the blurred, twisted face appeared in each frame, a chilling trace. At first he lingered far behind, a creeping presence hard to find. But picture by picture he came near, each step forward brought a surge of fear. In the final frame he stood so close, his hand upon Jack's shoulder's ghost. The glowing light around Jack grew, as if the man's touch made it true. The parents stared, their minds in shock, at this strange man who'd come to stalk. They asked each other, "Did you see? Who is this man? What could he be?" They showed the photos to those who came to share in grief, to ease the pain. But every friend and every face saw only Jack, no eerie trace, no glowing light, no spectral glow, no man in shadows, no fear to show. The photos taken by others that night were normal, clear, without the fright. But in their hands the truth did lie, a darkened secret, a cursed tie. For they alone could see the truth, a spectral vision, a damning proof. They knew then, as they held the frames, that Jack had played a dangerous game. A deal with shadows, a price to pay, and now his soul had gone away. In the heart of Michigan, up north where these four high school boys lived, it was the 1990s, a time of grunge and plaid. Prom night was approaching, and the boys felt sad. No dates to speak of, not a girl in sight, so they planned to hit the prom, then leave before the night. Tom, the leader, had the keys to his dad's old ride, a rusty Camaro with room enough inside. Joe was the joker, always quick with a laugh. Mark was the thinker, with a mind like a graph. And then there was Steve, a quiet, brooding type. Together they formed a crew, solid and tight. Prom night came, the music loud and clear, but the boys felt out of place, like they didn't belong here. The gym was filled with couples, all dressed to impress, but the boys just stood there, feeling the stress. Tom turned to the others. "Let's get out of here. There's a skating rink in the next town, and I've got some beer." The others agreed, ready to flee. They left the prom early, seeking to be free. They drove through the night, the road stretched ahead, the rink was alive, the lights bright red. But when they arrived, their luck took a dive. The girls at the rink just crushed their drive. They tried to mingle, tried to find a date, but the girls just laughed, sealing their fate. Rejected again, the boys felt let down, so they left the rink, feeling like clowns. As they drove back home, the road dark and cold, Tom gripped the wheel, his hands steady and bold. The moon was high, casting shadows long, and then they saw something that felt so wrong. Four figures appeared, dressed in prom attire, walking down a road, their presence dire. The boys all saw them, no one said a word, just four high schoolers, a sight so absurd. "Did you see that?" Mark finally spoke. The tension in the car felt like a choke. "Yeah," said Steve, his voice low and rough. "Should we go back? This is too much stuff." Tom pulled the car to a stop with a skid. What if their limo broke down? What if they hid? "Let's find their ride, give them a lift. It's too dark out here, the night's too stiff." They turned the car around, searching the road, but no limo was found, no broken down load. Confused and uneasy, they searched once more, but the 4 prom-goers had vanished, like before. The boys felt a chill, a creeping dread, but they shrugged it off, headed home instead. The weekend passed, but their minds couldn't rest. The memory lingered, a haunting guest. Monday came, and school was the same, but the boys felt different, touched by the flame. They told their friends, shared the strange tale of the prom-goers walking, their faces pale. But one teacher overheard, his face turned white. He pulled Tom aside, his eyes filled with fright. "Tell me again what you saw that night and where it happened, where you took flight." Tom told the story, every detail he knew, and the teacher listened, his face still as glue. When Tom finished, the teacher sighed and revealed a secret, long buried and tied. "Years ago," the teacher began, his voice a whisper low, "there was a prom night in the spring with no snow. 4 students dressed up, just like you said, but their limo crashed and they ended up dead." Tom's heart raced, his mind a blur. The boys had seen something they couldn't deter. Ghosts of the past, still walking the road, seeking a prom that fate had forebode. The teacher warned them, "Don't go back there. That road is cursed. It's a deathly snare." The boys nodded, fear in their veins, but the memory of that night still remained. The boys couldn't shake the sight from their heads, the ghostly figures, the words unsaid. Days passed by, but their minds were trapped in the eerie vision their courage sapped. Yet curiosity grew, a burning fire, an urge to return, a deep desire. "What if we go back?" Joe dared to say. "See those ghosts again, find a way." Tom, always bold, felt the pull, a mystery that made his blood run cold. Mark and Steve hesitated, fear in their eyes, but in the end they couldn't deny. So one dark night, they set out again. Driving down the road where it all began, they drove back and forth, up and down, searching for the prom-goers in that lonely town. Hours passed, but they wouldn't give in, determined to find what had been. Then suddenly there they stood, the 4 prom ghosts in the same dark wood, their faces blank, their eyes so dead, a chill ran down as fear spread. Tom pulled over, his hands now cold. "We'll offer them a ride. Be brave, be bold." The boys nodded, though dread filled their hearts as they approached the figures who played their parts. "Need a lift?" Tom called, his voice apprehensively willing. But the ghosts just stared, their silence a little bit chilling. Finally, one of the ghosts seemed to nod, and the boys opened the doors, inviting them into the old hot rod. But as they turned to head back to their ride, the ghosts vanished like smoke on a tide. "Where'd they go?" Mark whispered low. But before they could move, the horror began to grow. The car's engine hummed in the still night air, but inside a nightmare began to tear. The prom ghosts, now twisted, grotesque, moved closer to the boys who could only guess. Tom's heart pounded, fear gripping tight, as the ghost beside him revealed its fright. Its face once human, now a hollowed shell, eyes sunken deep, a portal to hell. Its grin widened, a jagged maw, revealing teeth like broken saws. It leaned in close, breath cold as death, whispering words that stole Tom's breath. But before Tom could scream or react, the ghost struck with a bone-crunching crack. Its hand shot out, gripping his skull, and with a savage twist made it dull. Tom's neck snapped with a sickening sound. His body went limp, slumped to the ground. His eyes glazed over, life snuffed out, as blood trickled from his mouth, no doubt. Joe, in the passenger seat, froze in fear as the ghost behind him drew near. Its fingers, long and skeletal thin, dug into Joe's flesh, tearing within. It grabbed his jaw with a vice-like grip, and with a violent pull, ripped it with a rip. His lower face torn clean away, blood sprayed the windshield in a crimson display. Joe's screams were garbled, filled with pain, as the ghost bashed his head again and again. The dashboard cracked, his skull caved in, and Joe's life ended in a brutal spin. In the back seat, Mark and Steve were trapped as the remaining ghosts viciously snapped. Mark tried to fight, kicking and thrashing, but the ghost beside him was relentlessly slashing. It grabbed his arm, twisting it with glee. Bones shattered, Mark's agony a plea. His arm hung limp, a mangled mess, as the ghost tore into his chest. Ribs cracked open like a cage as the ghost's hand plunged in with rage. It grasped Mark's heart with icy chill, and with one yank made it still. Blood poured out, a gory flood, as Mark's body slumped, drenched in blood. Steve, the last, watched in horror as the final ghost fed on his terror. Its eyes gleamed with a wicked light as it moved closer, savoring the fright. It grabbed Steve's leg, pulling him near, and with a sickening snap, broke it clear. Steve screamed in pain, but the ghost didn't stop. It twisted his other leg with a sickening pop. His bones splintered, muscles tore, as Steve was reduced to a quivering sore. The ghost's hands then wrapped around his neck, and with a ferocious twist, snapped it with a peck. Steve's head twisted in an unnatural way as the ghost toyed with its prey. But it wasn't done. It wanted more, as it tore Steve's limbs from his core. His arms and legs were ripped apart, leaving behind only a broken heart. The ghost savored the blood and bone, as Steve's life ended with a final groan. The car's interior was a scene of gore, blood and viscera coating every door. Bones jutted out, flesh was torn, the boys' bodies brutally worn. Their faces bashed, their skulls cracked. The ghost's attack was savage and exact. The car's seats were soaked in red, the boys' insides spread, the horror fed. The windows fogged with death's breath as the ghosts reveled in their dark fest. But as the night grew colder still, the ghosts faded, leaving behind their kill. When first responders arrived, they could barely speak, their faces pale, their knees weak. What they found was beyond belief, a scene of horror, endless grief. The boys' bodies torn to shreds, their insides scattered, their lives dead. Bones splintered, blood sprayed wide, a massacre that couldn't be denied. But the truth was too dark to reveal, so the cops made a deal to conceal. They called it a crash, a tragic scene, covered the truth, kept it clean. But those who knew felt the dread of the ghosts that left the boys dead.